Hey everybody, I'm Samurai Sam. Finally, for real this time, I am doing the last Super Nintendo episode. It's the system I have the most games for, so it's taking absolutely forever. And let's just get right to it because this is already taking way too long. So here is Puzzlin Desu, Puzzurun Desu. However, it doesn't really translate well to English, I don't think. I'm using there on the box the English, or I guess it's English. It doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But this is a very obscure but very cool puzzle game. More of a puzzle-solving game. It's not like the Tetris kind. It's more like you walk around, pushing blocks around, trying to solve puzzles. And there's multiplayer, multi-tap compatibility with up to 4 players, which is really cool. And I dig the music and the personality of this game. And I haven't really played it a lot, but I definitely want to change that at some point. It is a very cool game. Here we have if I'm remembering this right, it's Nintama Rentaro, I think. This is based on an anime of that name, minus the puzzle. I'm not going to try and say it again. This is more of like the Tetris style of puzzle game. And I don't remember exactly how the mechanics work. I haven't had this game terribly long. I've only booted it up once. But yeah, I got it for cheap, and it seems cool. And yeah, at some point, probably when I have a friend over or something, I will fire that up to try out the multiplayer, and I will get a better idea of how it is. Here's a game called Rejoice. This is I want to say, action RPG sort of game. Probably vaguely comparable to Zelda, and I think you have different party members in this one and such with different abilities or whatever. This does not have a translation patch yet for it. There is one that's been in the works for quite some time, and I think it's not too... The creator told me a few years ago it was not too close from being done, but things have caused it to not be finished. I'm just kind of waiting on that one to see when it's going to be translated, which it should be at some point. But it seems like a good game. Here we have Rockman and Forte, better known as Mega Man and Bass. This is a kind of an odd entry to the Mega Man series, because this came after Mega Man 8 came out on the PlayStation and Sega Saturn. This is a very, very late Super Famicom game. This is like in the heyday of the 64 and PlayStation. And it actually takes a lot of the graphics and even a couple of the Robot Masters from Mega Man 8. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of like Mega Man 8.5 in a way. But one thing that sets it apart is that you can play as either Mega Man or Bass. Mega Man controls more like traditional Mega Man, and Bass controls like Mega Man X Mega Man. And I enjoyed this game. It's not like one of the best Mega Man games, I don't think, but I thought it was fun playing as Bass. I felt like the game was kind of more designed for Bass, like playing as Mega Man a little bit. I kind of felt like I couldn't do enough in the levels. Yeah, definitely want to check out if you like the Mega Man series. So next we have 3 games right here I'm going to show you in quick succession. Romancing Saga. This game got a full-fledged 3D remake on the PlayStation 2, which did actually get released in America. This original Super Famicom version also does have a translation patch. And after that we have Romancing Saga 2, which got I think 2D remake just recently on like all the major systems like Switch, PC, PlayStation, and whatever. I think even mobile. And then finally we have Romancing Saga 3, which I believe has an English translation patch, albeit a bad one. That does exist, but probably does make the game playable. So the Romancing Saga games are well known for, or the Saga series in general, they're known for being like more open-ended RPGs. They're like JRPGs, kind of like Final Fantasy, but more non-linear, and like you can... Some of the Saga games, I don't know like about these 3, but like you can choose like different characters and play through their storylines or whatever, or like kind of make them the main character, and you have some freedom that way as well. And at some point I'll really try and sink my teeth into a Saga game, but that just hasn't happened yet. It will at some point. Here we have a game called Raida Nohiko, also known as Treasure of the Rudras, and this is a Squaresoft game for Super Famicom, and this is an RPG, like Final Fantasy, another one of those. One thing that sets this game apart is that you can actually like input text to say like what spell that you want to do. So it's like your characters don't level up and learn spells. You literally just type out new ones that you want to use, and then your characters can use them, something like that. And it does have a complete English patch, which properly translates the mechanic of typing in the name of the spell you want. I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, it seems like a cool game. I tried playing it like a little bit a long time ago, and I had a little bit of trouble getting into it, but I think I didn't quite understand the game well enough, so it definitely deserves another shot. This here is, the English title would be known as Dragon Squadron Danzar. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Japanese. But This is yet another RPG because the Super Famicom had a ton of Final Fantasy Dragon Quest style RPGs. Everybody was trying to get on that bandwagon in Japan. It's just not that many of them came out in America. Thankfully, a lot of them have translation patches so we English speakers can experience them. And I can't tell you too much about this one in particular. There's some songs in the soundtrack that I like. And yeah, I got it for cheap. Again, these Super Famicom games, I got a lot of them for cheap back in the day from like the same seller or few sellers to reduce shipping costs. Here we have Seiken Densetsu 3, which just recently got an official American release for the first time under the name Trials of Mana in the collection of Mana. This is the sequel to Secret of Mana, although not a direct sequel. They're not like, I don't think they're actually linked in any particular way, but yeah, in this game you can start out by choosing which of these characters on the front you want to, like, whose story you want to play as and like who you want your party members to be, and you go from there, and it's quite different than Secret of Mana. So I was not a big Secret of Mana fan, but I'm still willing to give this game a shot at one point to see how I like it. Soundtrack is really good. It seems like graphics and presentation is also really good. Just haven't quite gotten into this one yet. And now this pile is done. Piles everywhere. I have to like manage this. This is going to be a mess. Oh well, I'll clean it up. Here we got another stack of them here. Ooh. Here we have I don't remember the full title, but this is basically Gundam Wing Endless Duel. And so this is obviously a licensed game based on the Gundam series, and this is a 2D fighter a la Street Fighter. And really good one. Like, never watched Gundam, don't have any affinity for it. But this is a cool 2D fighting game with mechs on the Super Nintendo. Fun if you have a friend who enjoys these type of games. Yeah, and wants some multiplayer action. I got this all messed up here. Alright, here we have Snoopy Concert. I have no idea why this didn't get released outside of Japan. Of course, Peanuts is very popular in Japan, but it's really popular here, so why did they release it here? Maybe it's because it's a Super NES mouse game, but I think you can play it with a controller anyway, so like, why is it... I don't know. Why was this not released in America? I have no idea. But I think this game is technically aimed more towards young children, but I really like Charlie Brown Peanuts, and I thought it was a kind of a neat little oddity in the library to have, so I grabbed it. I really like the music and some like the arranged soundtracks of like the music from the TV specials of Peanuts. And then basically you're Snoopy and like you choose the different characters to play different levels. Like Snoopy has one level where he's going for shorter, then one level where I think you're playing as shorter, like one level you're playing as Charlie Brown and then playing as Snoopy and stuff. So you play as like all the different characters and then in the end they all get together for a concert or something. And seems like a neat little game, probably not anything spectacular, but as a Peanuts fan I wanted it. Here we have Star Ocean. This is one of the biggest Super Nintendo games in terms of like just this raw size of the game. This is a RPG, of course, kind of with a sci-fi vibe to it. Like it's got like it opens up like on a spaceship scene, like you'd see in like a Star Trek sort of thing. But it's definitely, make no mistake, a JRPG. Although it does have not turn-based battles, but like kind of more active, where you like your characters move around in free time and stuff. I tried getting into this game and I had a little bit of trouble. Like I liked some things about it, like the music is great. Graphics are great. The story seemed interesting, but like the gameplay seemed a little... I wasn't feeling it. Maybe sometime I'll try it a little bit more. This had a very different remake for the PSP made years later, and that did come out in America, and of course the Super Nintendo version has a complete translation patch. Here we have Sugoi Hebereke. So the Hebereke series is mostly only in Japan, but a couple of them got released in Europe. We already saw the first one on Famicom in an earlier episode. This is like a brawl, free-for-all kind of game where like everybody's in the arena and they're fighting and stuff. I haven't played this one a lot. It's multi-tap compatible, as you would imagine, and I definitely want to play it with some friends at some point. Here is Super Bomberman 4, and Bomberman shouldn't need an introduction, probably. It's very popular for its multiplayer, and this, of course, is multi-tap compatible with up to 5 players, I think. And, yeah, it's just a lot of fun, like a lot of cool different levels and options for multiplayer play, and you got, like, all kinds of cool like power-ups and things and stuff. Look at Bomberman on the top here, like, just kind of peeking out. I like that. And yeah, it's a cool game. Super Bomberman 4. Here we have... can you take a guess at what's next? Well, if you guessed Super Bomberman 5, you were right. Actually, the only Bombermans I don't have are Super Bomberman 1 and 3 now. I believe. I have 2, 4, and 5, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of more of the same with Super Bomberman 4. I mean, I know that there are differences. don't know the games quite well enough to tell you what they are. But yeah, it's Bomberman, and it's cool. And it's fun with friends, which I like to do. I like to have friends over and play games. Here's a Super Gusu no Yo-Yo 2. This is, there's also a first one on Super Famicom, but I don't have that one. This is a weird little kind of action puzzle game. It kind of reminds me of Lemmings. Think of Lemmings crossed with Tetris, sort of. Only you have one character trying to rescue instead of a whole bunch. And basically, you're controlling these Tetris blocks that fall down, and there's this dumb baby in the level that's wandering around, and you need to stack the blocks so that the baby gets up to the exit. And it seems kind of difficult from what I've played, but also seems like it could be a lot of fun, and I like the soundtrack, and it does have a complete translation patch, although I'm not sure you even need it to play the game. It's a cool one to have in the library. Super Goose no YuYu 2. Here we have Super Dunk Shot. This is a version of a game I already have shown off in a previous episode. The American version is called NCAA Basketball. And instead of NCAA basketball teams, this features knockoff NBA teams, which I think is a lot of fun. Like you see here, that's clearly supposed to be Michael Jordan on the front, but in his uniform, instead of Bulls, it says Bills because they changed the name. And so, yeah, it's very amusing to me. Actually, the American version is objectively better because this... I forget exactly what it is, but I think with this one you can't save the game in the middle of a game or something like that. Or, like, I'm not even sure it has save battery backup. But yeah, the American version does, so it's better. But I wanted to have that one anyway because hilarious knockoff teams. Here we have Super Nazo Puyo. Is this the second one? I think there's a couple of them. But, Super Nazo... Yeah, this is Nazo Puyo. Definitely. Just making sure that I get it right. So yeah, basically, I mean, it's Puyo Puyo, but it's focused on solving puzzles. And I want to say, like, this is sort of slightly RPG-ish, because I think you, like, go around and walk around and talk to characters and stuff in order to, like, find more puzzles. And, yeah, it seems like a neat game. I don't think this one actually does have a translation, but it was cheap. Kind of a weird-looking cover where it has, like, real-life food and then the anime character there on the front. Now, how am I going to do this? I'm going to just throw these in here. Bear with me for a second. Here is the next batch of Super Famicom. Let me just grab a handful. Super Street Fighter 2: The New Challengers. This did actually get American release, and yeah, it's kind of. I think this is the very last version of Street Fighter 2 that they made back in the day, where they added 4 new characters that you see on the front: Cammy, DJ, Fei Long, and T-Hawk. And it got an American release. So why do I have this? It's because it was sent to me by accident by a Japanese seller, and they didn't demand that I pay the return shipping or anything. Well, I mean, it was their mistake. Why would I do that? Yeah, they didn't like offer me a refund to pay for. Well, yeah, they didn't offer me the shipping cost to send it back, so I never sent it back. I still have it to this day, and yeah, I actually don't have the English version, so that's kind of amusing. But yeah, I mean, Street Fighter 2. You know Street Fighter 2, right? It's great. Here we have Super Genjin 2, also known as Super Bonk 2. This is a Bonk game we did not get in America. This is a sequel to the Super Nintendo exclusive entry in the Bonk series. And this one, from what I hear, is better than the first one. I'm forgetting what exactly sets it apart, but I know this is a good game. I do like the music in this one, too. And yeah, it's Bonk. If you play Bonk, you kind of know what Bonk is. It's kind of silly, goofy, charming, kind of prehistoric, cartoony vibe to it. Supersoak Gabon. Now, I believe we've already talked a little bit about Sokoban, but this is a puzzle game, a puzzle-solving game, rather, where, like, see, in the screenshot, you're that little guy walking around, and you're sliding those boxes to try and get them in all the correct spaces, and you cannot drag them and pull them backwards, you can only push them, and it is really, really hard. Like, there are some puzzles in this game that are just super difficult. But, you know, maybe you like being challenged, so this is a pretty good game if you like that. And this also has a 2-player multiplayer thing, which is pretty fun. I've tried it a little bit. Yeah, solid game, not too expensive, good to have in the library. Here's a really underrated game, in my opinion, or overlooked rather, Super Tetris 3. You never hear anyone talking about this really, but it's a lot of fun. It's weird, it's got like horizontal on one side and vertical on the other side. So, yeah, it's Tetris, and it's got a few modes. The coolest mode in this version is Magicalist, where like there's colored blocks, and you can make a complete row of the same color in order to eliminate all other blocks in your row of that color and then send garbage to the other player and stuff. And it's really fun. It's a really cool little twist on the Tetris formula, and I don't know if it's available in any other Tetris game other than this one. But yeah, this is a game totally under the radar, and it's not expensive. I highly recommend it, especially if you have a friend to play with. And it also has up to 4 players, by the way, too, with the multi-tap. One of my favorite Super Famicom games right here. This is Sute Hakun, a very late Super Famicom release as well. And you play as this little, I think it's supposed to be like some kind of a mosquito here. And you solve puzzles. It's an action puzzle game. And so what you can do is, like, you see these characters down here, you can, like, suck those characters, like absorb them, generally, and absorb the colors inside of them. And you use the colors to manipulate how the blocks in the characters move, and you use that to solve the puzzles. And it's super fun. It's very challenging, but mad fun to play, and it's so satisfying when you spend a lot of time on a puzzle and you finally solve it. And I just absolutely love this game. I'll probably never beat it legitimately because it's really, really difficult. But, you know, it doesn't start out really, really difficult. You work your way up, but by the time you get to the end, it's so hard. But, yeah, really, really great game. I really wish they would release that and overseas it in some form or fashion, because a lot of people are missing out. It's too obscure, sadly. Here we have Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. We got this in America for the PlayStation and the PSP, but those versions, well, the PSP version is very different. The PlayStation version is basically the same, but the soundtrack is drastically nerfed, so there's probably loading times too. So I have this version, it's nice and cheap, and there's a translation patch. And yeah, it's a popular game, strategy RPG. It was made by a lot of the people who would go on to make Final Fantasy Tactics, so you'll see a lot of comparisons there. Really kind of like a trailblazer in the genre. Like, a lot of things you see in this game became norms in the genre. I tried getting into this once, though, and I had a lot of trouble. Like, it seemed very grindy when I first played it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something I wasn't doing right or something like that. But, yeah, I love the soundtrack of Tactics Ogre, though. It's a beautiful game to hear. Here is Tenshi no Uda, another game I haven't had that long because it was just recently translation patched. And, yeah, it's an RPG. What do you know? I don't have too much else to say other than that. Yeah, it's another one of those. It's got a patch. I heard a friend of mine on Twitter tried it and said it was cool, so I picked it up too. It's not too expensive. Oh, here's another one of my favorites. Here's Tetris Battle Gaiden. Another great game if you have like a friend to play with who's into Tetris. You have, yeah, I mean, it's Tetris, but there's a whole bunch of different playable characters, and they all have 4 unique superpowers, and you can use them in the middle of battle to turn the tides and such. Flaws with this game include another one where it's like horizontal and vertical on the back. That's confusing. But anyway, the flaws with this game, though, are the single player is not that good. The computer can sometimes just take forever to die. And it's also not particularly balanced. Like, the shaman character is, like, definitely way too overpowered. His level 1 superpower is just crazy good. But it's still, I mean, make no mistake, it's a mad fun game, a must-have if you're into Super Famicom. Here's a fun little obscure game. It's called The Adventure of Horai High School, or Horai Gakuen no Boken. And this is an RPG, Dragon Quest-y. Actually, this kind of reminds me of Earthbound / Mother. And basically, you're this student, like an exchange student at a high school, and you're going to live there for a semester, and you make friends, and it's a lot of like really silly, funny things happen, and it's a really fun game. A lot of good humor and cool dungeon design and stuff. But a lot of really serious flaws, like, for example, it's way too easy, and equipment you buy actually doesn't increase your performance in battle, which is ludicrous, but it doesn't matter that much because the game's way too easy. This game does have a translation patch, which is how I was able to play it, and so I very much recommend it. It's very overlooked, and just, you know, be aware of the flaws, but to me, is definitely worth dealing with the flaws to play the such a very unique and fun RPG. Let me just, we're getting close to the end here. We got one more pile of these to deal with. Come on now. Here we go. Here we have The Great Battle 4. We already looked at The Great Battle 5 in a previous episode because I have the cart only. But yeah, this is one of those crossover games with Gundam, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, and then one more I don't remember the name of right offhand. But fun action game, action platformer, very well made. And I believe this is also 2-player cooperative as well, which is really cool. Yeah, definitely recommend it, even if you're not into these properties. Fun action game. Here we have... here is Treasure Hunter G, which I believe was published by Squaresoft, but not developed by Squaresoft. So this is like an RPG, one of those RPGs that has like a strategy battle system when you actually get into the battles. And this game has an absolutely wonderful soundtrack. Like, I know I say that a lot, but this game especially has a really great soundtrack. So funny story with this. This game does have a translations patch. I played some of it on an emulator, and then I got to a certain point, and I literally could not progress because for some weird reason there was a glitch in like this NPC that was supposed to like be walking around in this room was like stuck blocking the exit or something. And no matter how many times I reloaded my file, even if like I switched what ROM I was using, that guy would still be there. So like my save file literally just glitched. Also, another problem with this game, I tried to get into it a second time, but the beginning of the game sucks because they make you grind for money, and it's hard to even find the money. So, yeah, I mean, at some point I'll probably play all the way through Treasure Hunter G. I want to, but yeah, cool game, but my experience with it have been weirdly not that good. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Here is one of my favorites, Umihara Kawase. This is one of my earlier imports for Super Famicom, one I've played a great deal. And this is a cool game. Really one of the poster childs for like why import gaming is worth it and fun. So basically it's a platformer, and you are this girl who has a fishing line. And you use the fishing line to like swing around like Spider-Man, and the physics are extremely sophisticated and mad fun to use, difficult to master, but also like not too unintuitive. It's a lot of fun. And the game is really designed around it. Like, it's not just some gimmick they threw in. The game is really designed around the mechanic, and it's done super well. And thankfully, a lot of people have taken notice to Umihara Kawase over the years, and now we're actually getting the games released in the U.S. Like, the third game in the series got released here for the 3DS and Vita, digital only, sadly. But actually, the Vita version did get a physical release through Strictly Limited, I think. Got a very limited physical release. So I was kind of happy to see that. Sadly, the fourth game on the Nintendo Switch, Sayonara Umihara Kawase, is not nearly as good as the first three. But thankfully, we have this one. There's no language barrier to this, pretty much, unless you want to save replays. But like, I mean, I don't care. As far as just playing it, it's totally easy to play. Actually, you can get this game on Steam, believe it or not, and the sequel. So I highly recommend that if you don't care for importing the Super Famicom cartridge. Great game, Umihara Kawase. Here is Wonder Project J. This is a game where you have like this little dude here. He's like a robot. And I want to say this is kind of like a Tamagotchi sort of game where like you raise him and kind of like train him and stuff. And I don't remember exactly how it works, but it seems like a unique, funny, ambitious game. Yeah, some of the music is good too. This is an Enix game, I think. Yeah, I think it is Enix, Enix, however you pronounce it. I think it's actually Enix. So yeah, at some point I'll delve into this and see if it's my thing, and just at least appreciate it for what it is. Wonder Project J. And there's also a sequel in the Nintendo 64, I should mention. Also didn't get released here. Wrecking Crew 98, one of the most obscure Mario games. And again, this didn't get released here almost certainly because, again, 98. I mean, they weren't really releasing Super Nintendo games anymore at that point in America. This is actually, I mean, obviously this is inspired by the NES game of that title. And it actually contains the NES game in it, but this game is actually very different. It's like a versus kind of puzzle game sort of thing where, like, I think you move your characters around the level and, like, move blocks around to match the colors or something like that. It's very different. I actually haven't played it a lot, but I want to. I think this is really cool. I'll probably try the multiplayer when I have a friend over at some point. And, yeah, definitely like to have, like, those cool, obscure, good Mario games. Here we go down here. This is a game called You May Make You Dream Maze. Something like that. Or yeah, Dream Maze is like the translated English. How you would refer to this game in English would be Dream Maze. This game is an RPG, but very unique. Like, I think it's mostly dungeon-based, kind of like a dungeon crawler. And I'm a little bit foggy on the details, but I think you, like, recruit monsters in something. And I forget exactly, like, what the... one of the Let's Player I subscribed to actually played this fairly recently, and he liked it. He doesn't typically even play RPGs. I don't remember exactly why he liked it, but it's definitely a game I want to spend some time with. Here we have YuYu Hakusho. We've already looked a little bit we looked at least one YuYu Hakusho game already. It's an anime I haven't watched, although I am interested in watching it at some point. I don't know if I'm ever going to do that, but this is I guess you would technically call it a fighting game, but it's not really like a fighting game. When you think of fighting game, it's not like this. This is basically, you have two characters, and you do have life bars, but it's like a rock, paper, scissors sort of deal, where, like, it's cinematic. It's very cinematic. So, like, you choose an action that you're going to do on, like, your turn while there is an active time thing. It's like an active time turn-based thing, if that makes sense. Like there's a time bar that's ticking, so like every couple seconds you can put in an action, and like certain actions counter certain other actions, and graphics are cool, and like there's all these cinematic shots for all the different actions, and yeah, even though I haven't played I haven't watched Yu Yu Hakusho, this is cool enough so that I'm interested in it. Again, it's one of those where there is a translation patch in the works for this, but it has been in the works for years. It's just I'm just kind of waiting for it to be done so I can properly play this game. I did actually place a little bit of, I was able to play a little bit of the beta English translation, and I enjoyed it a lot. Good multiplayer game. And then here we have Yu Yu Hakusho 2, which is actually a more traditional Street Fighter-ish fighting game. So you can see in the back there, it's a completely different style. And yeah, I have Yu Yu Hakusho Final, which I showed you in a previous episode, which is also in this style. And yeah, it's probably pretty solid. But yeah, I need to spend more time to really get a good opinion on it. And maybe at some point I'll watch Yu Yu Hakusho. And then finally, the final Super Nintendo game that we're going through. Yeah, this is going to be the last one. So the last one we're doing is Yu Yu Hakusho Tokubetsu Hen. So this is back to the style of the first Yu Yu Hakusho that I just showed you 2 games ago. And yeah, the cinematic rock, paper, scissors gameplay. I believe this one has like more content and more characters and stuff, but I believe this one also doesn't have a story mode. I think that's what sets it apart. And so, yeah, I think that's it. That is my finally, after all these videos, I've gone through all my Super Nintendo games and said a little thing, sometimes more than a little thing about each one of them. And, whew, long journey, finally done. And I believe, let me think, what's next? Yeah, I believe what's next is going to be, is it going to be Sega Saturn? Let me see. Yeah, so stay tuned. Pretty sure it's Sega Saturn that's next. That's also going to take a little while because I have but not nearly as long as Super Nintendo. That's probably going to be, Sega Saturn will probably be 2 episodes. I'll probably do English and Japanese. So, thank you for watching, all 3 of you, or probably. And this is Samurai Sam. Have a great rest of your day.